The mid-autumn family reunion feast saw the return of my father-in-law and husband, who had been missing for a week, bringing back a pure and innocent mother-daughter pair. They were the white moonlight that had lingered in their hearts for years. After 3 years of marriage, my usually indifferent husband actually showed a gentle smile to someone else, and my typically stern father-in-law surprisingly lowered his guard and personally invited the mother and daughter to join the reunion feast. After the banquet, my doting mother-in-law pulled me aside and whispered, "I've saved up quite a bit of money over the years. Do you want to come with me?" I nodded eagerly, and together with my mother-in-law, we left behind a divorce agreement and walked away. For several months, my mother-in-law treated me to a life of luxury. On my birthday, she even arranged a lineup of male models for me to choose from. But when the dim lights turned on, I was shocked to see my ex-husband standing among the male models, glaring at me with gritted teeth. "It seems you've been living quite comfortably these past few months." At the Mid-Autumn Festival reunion dinner, I sat next to my mother-in-law. The dishes on the table were prepared by us during an entire afternoon. Seated across from me was my husband of 3 years, Suzanne, but the spot beside him had long been taken by another woman, and I no longer had a place in his eyes. The usually stern father-in-law sat solemnly in the host's seat, but beside him was no longer his wife. Instead, another woman had taken her place. The woman looked smugly at her mother-in-law, yet spoke with cautious deliberation. "Perhaps Xiaofu and I should leave first. After all, today is Mid-Autumn Festival. Your family's reunion day. It's really not appropriate for us to be here." As she spoke, the woman stood up. Seeing this, Lin Fu, who was seated beside Suzanne, immediately rose as if preparing to leave as well, yet both the father-in-law and Suzanne stood up simultaneously, uttering the same 2 words in unison. "Wait." Seeing this, my mother-in-law simply kept adding more dishes to my bowl, saying, "Suzanne, stop right there." Suzanne halted, finally shifting his gaze to me and my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law said coldly, "Sit down. These are dishes Jiao Jiao has been working on all afternoon. Today is Mid-Autumn Festival. You're her husband. If you're not keeping her company, who else are you going to accompany?" Suzanne frowned, looking at the dishes on the table that had already gone cold. Lin Fu sensed Suzanne's hesitation and tugged at the woman's sleeve at just the right moment. "Mom, since Auntie Yi has said so, maybe we shouldn't stay here anymore." The woman nodded, casting what seemed like a reluctant glance at her father-in-law. "Young, thank you for today. I know you meant well for us, but after all, it's Mid-Autumn Festival. It's better for a family to be together." Father-in-law Su Yang instinctively grabbed the woman's hand as he saw her about to leave. "Xiaoying, you just got divorced and the house was divided. Where can you and your daughter go tonight? Our house has plenty of spare rooms. Have a good meal here first and stay for a while." Suzanne also nodded in agreement, speaking gently to Lin Fu. "My dad is right. I'll have the housekeeper prepare 2 rooms right away. Please sit down and eat first. It's no trouble at all." Suzanne's considerate tone and doting gaze pierced my heart like a knife. In 3 years of marriage, I had never seen this side of Suzanne. After all, in front of me, he was always composed and self-restrained, even as serious and unsmiling as his father. I glanced uneasily at my mother-in-law, only to find her already staring blankly at the intertwined hands of my father-in-law and Lin Ying. I stood up and said softly, "Today is Mid-Autumn Festival, a day for our family reunion. Mom has been waiting and preparing for this day for a long time. Dad, could you let them, the mother and daughter, stay at a hotel for now?" Before my father-in-law could speak, Suzanne's expression changed first. "Jiang Jiao, with so many empty rooms in the house, what's the problem with cleaning up too for Xiaofu and her mother? Can't you just rein in those little temper tantrums of yours? Would it hurt to show a bit more compassion toward others?" I pressed my lips together and fell silent, yet the pain lingered, and my heart kept sinking uncontrollably. I could tell Lin Fu was special to Suzanne, but since Suzanne married me, and I've spent 3 years by his side, I always thought I would hold some special place in his heart. Yet now it seems nothing has changed from before. In his heart, the most special and unique person will never be me. Chapter 2. The sound of shattering glass exploded in the quiet dining room, startling me. I turned to look in the direction of the noise. The glass cup in mother-in-law's hand shattered, leaving tiny bloodstains on her palm from the broken shards. "Is this how you speak to your wife? What have I taught you all these years?" Mother-in-law glared coldly at Su Zian before shifting her gaze to father-in-law. "Su Yang, today is Mid-Autumn Festival, a time for family reunion. What kind of family are they? Isn't it enough that you're supporting them outside, now you want to bring them into our home?" Father-in-law's face darkened, his voice filled with anger. "Yi Yun, what do you mean by that? Lin Ying just got divorced and has nowhere to stay. What's wrong with me helping them?" The mother-in-law sneered. "No place to stay. So this villa is the only place fit for living, is that it? Su Yang, what exactly are you scheming? You know perfectly well in your heart. Ever since that mother and daughter returned to the country, you and Su Zian have been running out every day. Now you've completely disappeared for a whole week. Jiao Jiao and I have been searching frantically, yet you brought them home for the Mid-Autumn feast. Su Yang, is there anyone more disgusting than you?" Watching my father-in-law's face darken as he moved closer, my heart tightened, and I instinctively shielded my mother-in-law, but the next second, I was yanked away with great force, falling to the ground, followed by the sharp sound of a slap. My mother-in-law's face immediately swelled red, her eyes filled with utter disbelief. After all, during all these years at home, although I've never seen my mother-in-law and father-in-law show more intimate affection, I've also never witnessed him raising a hand against her. Lin Ying gasped in shock and quickly stepped forward to grab hold of her father-in-law's arm. "Yang, what are you doing? Sister Yeyun is right. Xiao Fu and I were never truly part of your family to begin with, so we never had the right to share this meal with you. We'll be leaving now, Xiao Fu and I. You should have a good heart-to-heart with Sister Yi Yun." Hearing Lin Ying still fanning the flames, I got up, pushed my father-in-law aside, and shielded my mother-in-law behind me. For a moment, my father-in-law was also stunned. He wanted to open his mouth to explain but glanced at Lin Ying beside him. In the end, he snorted coldly, "If you want to eat this meal, you can have it yourselves. I'll take them out to eat with Zian." At this age, and still so unreasonable, with that, he took Lin Ying by the hand and strode out of the restaurant. I looked deeply at Su Zian, my tone somewhat bitter. Are you really leaving?" Su Zian didn't answer, but he took Lin Fu's hand and followed his father out of the restaurant. It was an outcome I had long anticipated, yet I still felt a stinging sensation in my eyes, but I held back my tears and turned around to check on my mother-in-law's injuries. Her face was already swollen, clearly indicating the force behind the blow. I sniffled and said softly, "Mom, let me get you an egg to put on it." My mother-in-law shook her head and pulled me back to sit at the dining table. "If they don't eat, it's just as well. Saves us the trouble of having our carefully prepared dishes go to waste on them." As she spoke, she picked up more food and put it on my plate. "Let's just focus on eating ourselves." Her hand holding the chopsticks was already trembling slightly, and tears glistened in her eyes. I gently held my mother-in-law's hand. "Mom, don't be sad. If you want to cry, just let it out, it's okay." My mother-in-law suddenly withdrew her hand holding the chopsticks and buried herself in my arms, crying. That was the first time I had ever seen my mother-in-law so vulnerable. I don't know how much time had passed, but mother-in-law's sobs gradually subsided. She straightened up and stared at me with slightly reddened eyes that didn't blink. "Jiao Jiao, you've been married into our family for so many years. I've long considered you as my own daughter. Now that both father and son have begun shifting their affections elsewhere, why should we waste the rest of our lives clinging to such men? If you trust me, let's file for divorce together. I've saved up quite a bit of money over these years, enough for us to live comfortably for a long time." Chapter 3. I was stunned, never expecting my mother-in-law to bring up divorce herself. After all, it's quite rare for someone of her age to initiate divorce. My father-in-law took advantage of this fact and became even more brazen in meeting Lin Ying multiple times. Perhaps influenced by my father-in-law, or perhaps because I had always been the submissive one in front of Su Zian, he too began to act with increasing audacity. They seemed to cling to one unshakable belief, that neither my mother-in-law nor I would dare to bring up divorce, but in truth, if we wanted to, we could walk away from this marriage at any moment. A union that was never destined to bring happiness. I nodded, feeling the sting of tears in my eyes once more. Great, let's go together. I've also heard a few stories about Grandma and Grandpa from their younger days. I heard that back when Grandma was still a somewhat famous actress, she met Grandpa during his struggling period. Perhaps it was love at first sight or some other reason. But in any case, Grandma reached out to help him. She endorsed her father-in-law's product for free and even invested a portion of her already modest acting fees into it. The result was a massive product success, not only reviving the company but taking it to even greater heights than before. After this, their interactions increased until they eventually entered the marriage hall. Her mother-in-law also stepped back from her career to focus on the family. But it wasn't until tonight that I learned the reason for my father-in-law's past downfall was his ex-girlfriend, Lin Ying, who ran away with his money. Not only did he not blame her, he even proactively introduced Lin Ying's daughter to Su Ziyan. Su Ziyan had been in contact with Lin Fu for much longer than I had imagined, but Lin Ying had already started a new family, and together with Lin Fu, they went abroad and never appeared again. I walked into the marriage hall with Su Ziyan, blessed with a kind mother-in-law and Su Ziyan's consistently decent attitude toward me, so I had always been carefully nurturing this relationship. But Lin Ying and her daughter returned to the country and reappeared before Su Ziyan and his father. At that moment, the marriage I had maintained for years suddenly collapsed. My husband began to blame me and even started staying out all night. But now it doesn't matter anymore. I'm fed up with this kind of life. I stopped wanting it long ago. Su Ziyan didn't return home until daylight. I lay in bed, listening to the sound of the door moving behind me, but didn't make any move. My mother-in-law has already started contacting lawyers, and I'm also looking at suitable travel routes. I suppose it won't be long before I can leave this home for good. Perhaps sensing that I'm already awake, or maybe simply not caring, Su Ziyan's voice sounded from behind. I won't be coming home these days, and you don't need to look for me either. Xiaofu just arrived and doesn't have many clothes that fit. I noticed you have a lot of unworn clothes here, so I took some over to her first. Hearing the sound of the wardrobe opening behind me, a surge of anger instantly rose within. I sat up, got out of bed, and snatched the clothes from Su Ziyan's hands. I stared at him coldly, having lost count of how many times I'd been disappointed by this man before me. Su Ziyan, I don't care if you want to keep a mistress outside, but bringing her home is unacceptable, let alone wanting her to use my things or wear my clothes. Don't even think about it. Su Ziyan was momentarily stunned. After all, this is the first time I've treated him with such an attitude. In the past, I was always eager to please him, even going out of my way to fulfill his every request. But now, I no longer want this inherently unequal relationship at all, nor am I willing to lower myself again to please a man who was never capable of loving me. Su Ziyan snapped back to reality and immediately darkened his expression. Who are you calling a homewrecker? He grabbed my wrist with such force that I couldn't help but cry out in pain. Jiang Jiao, watch your mouth. He narrowed his eyes. Jiang Jiao, don't tell me you were the one who instigated Mom to act like that last night. What, you pretended to be magnanimous and virtuous in front of me before, and now that you can't keep up the act, you're using Mom too. Before Su Ziyan could finish his sentence, the door was pushed open, and his mother-in-law strode in swiftly, slapping him across the face. Chapter 4, feeling my wrist loosen, I immediately pulled my hand back, but the redness and swelling on her wrist was still noticed by her mother-in-law. Frowning with a cold expression, she said to Su Ziyan, Jiao Jiao is still your wife. How could you abandon her during Mid-Autumn Festival to accompany another woman? If she's not a mistress, then what is she? How dare you speak to Jiao Jiao like that? Get out, I don't have a son like you. As she spoke, the mother-in-law forcefully pushed Su Ziyan out. Not daring to resist, Su Ziyan could only mutter, Mom, Dad and I just wanted to help that mother and daughter. After all, they're in such a pitiful state. Why must you act like this? Now you've even made things unpleasant with Dad. The mother-in-law blocked the doorway, glaring coldly at him. Oh, there are so many pitiable people in this world. Does getting a divorce make someone pitiable? Your father knows exactly what he's thinking, and you know exactly what you're thinking too. Get out of here. The door was slammed shut. and my mother-in-law immediately came over to check my wrist. Looking at the clothes torn and scattered on the floor, Suzian's words echoed in my mind once again. So, in his eyes, all my past efforts to please and compromises were just an act, perhaps, deep down. He never believed I had any genuine feelings for him. I lowered my head, and the tears I had held back all day finally couldn't be contained, falling drop by drop onto my swollen, red wrists. My mother-in-law sighed, took out a tissue, and carefully wiped away my tears for me. "All right, no more crying. He's just a fickle man. Good riddance. The lawyer I contacted has gotten back to me. The divorce agreement will be drafted in the next few days. How's the place you're looking at?" "Anywhere you'd like to go." I nodded and pulled out my phone to show my mother-in-law the upcoming travel plans. She smiled, pinched my cheek, and said, "All right, let's go there. From now on, you're my daughter. We'll live carefree like mother and daughter." Father-in-law and Suzian hadn't come home for several days in a row, but this also made it easier for me and mother-in-law to prepare things. We bought everything we needed, packed the suitcases to the brim, and even called a moving company. The housekeeper also sensed something was amiss, but out of respect for mother-in-law, didn't dare ask too many questions. The night before leaving, my mother-in-law placed a blank agreement in front of me. Without hesitation, I signed my name, only to hear her ask, "No regrets?" I nodded, "No regrets." Early the next morning, my mother-in-law and I boarded a plane to another province. My mother-in-law had already arranged everything locally, so we could move in directly with just our bags. Lying on the sofa, my mother-in-law suddenly got excited. "Jiao Jiao, I heard the nightlife here is quite lively. Let's relax and enjoy ourselves these few days. It just so happens your birthday is coming up soon. How about I take you out for some serious shopping?" I was about to agree when my phone rang. It was Suzian. At the same time, my mother-in-law's phone also rang. Probably the butler told Suzian and my father-in-law everything right after we left. I exchanged a glance with my mother-in-law, and in silent agreement, we blocked all their contact information. After a moment's thought, I said, "Actually, I think the first thing we need to do now is get a new phone number." My mother-in-law nodded in agreement, then stood up and pulled me to my feet from the couch. "Let's go, and while we're at it, we'll buy you some new clothes too." My mother-in-law and I embarked on a 3-day crazy shopping spree. These days, shopping bags have almost piled up our current home to the brim, and my mother-in-law dressed up again. She was originally an actress, so she naturally had a good foundation. But being a housewife these years had shifted her focus away from this aspect. I've seen how my mother-in-law looked when she was young, and now, when she dresses up, she looks almost the same as she did back then. As my mother-in-law and I were getting ready to go out to eat at the reserved restaurant, my friend's call came in. Although I changed my phone number, I still kept the contact information of familiar people. My friend's voice sounded somewhat helpless. "The Su family father and son have approached me several times. Especially Suzian, knowing that I have a decent relationship with you. He's practically been coming to my house every day. You changed your phone numbers and didn't share your itinerary with anyone else. I heard that father and son practically turned the whole city upside down but still couldn't find any trace of you or auntie. But they totally deserve it. I heard they even tried to introduce that mistress and her daughter to the high society ladies in their circle, but those women wouldn't give them the time of day." Exactly, after the scandal the Su father and son caused during Mid-Autumn Festival. Who doesn't know about it? Since when is keeping a mistress something to be proud of? By the end, her voice was also filled with righteous indignation. I smiled and said, "Thank you. Next time we meet, I'll definitely treat you to a meal." After hanging up the phone, my mother-in-law had already packed up and was waiting for me. Clearly, she had overheard part of the conversation, but neither of us brought it up again. Instead, we linked arms and took a taxi to the restaurant. After all, what happened between Su Yang and Suzian no longer concerned us. Now that you want to find someone, it's already too late for regrets. Belated affection is cheaper than grass. My mother-in-law understands this perfectly well without me having to say it. Chapter 5. These days, she's clearly in excellent spirits. Perhaps buoyed by her mood and newfound attention to her appearance, she even ran into several former fans on the street and took photos with them. The photos caused quite a stir on Weibo as well. After all, it had been a long time since she had made any waves in the entertainment industry after retiring upon her marriage. Now that she suddenly reappeared, many of her former fans have begun to reminisce about the days when she was still an actress. And some have even spontaneously formed a fan support group for her, editing and promoting her past works. Because of her, I've also been photographed several times, leaving many people curious about my identity. In response, she simply opened her own Weibo account and posted her first video since her reappearance. In the video, she had me sit beside her and introduced me to everyone. "This is my daughter, Jiao Jiao. I had been married to Su Zian for barely half a year when my parents passed away unexpectedly. With no particularly close relatives, I had to arrange their funerals entirely on my own. At that time, Su Zian was almost always at the company and rarely came home. Even after hearing the news of my parents' death, he merely contributed some money and didn't even have time to accompany me or pay respects to my parents. Only my mother-in-law stayed by my side during that period, helping me with all the arrangements. During the time when I was emotionally overwhelmed and couldn't eat, she thought of ways every day to make all kinds of delicious food for me. My relationship with my mother-in-law grew better and better, until she personally said those words, 'Jiao Jiao is my daughter.' I think marrying Su Zian was probably also meant for me to meet such a wonderful mother-in-law. After my mother-in-law's video was posted, it sparked another wave of discussion. The hashtag #YunSDaughter dominated the trending list for days. On the morning of my birthday, my mother-in-law woke me up early and pulled out a brand new outfit. "Try it on quickly. I had this custom made for you earlier." After I changed, my mother-in-law was immediately in high spirits. First, she took me to a high-end restaurant we had reserved, and then she brought out a cake she had made herself. By the time everything was finished, it was already dark. But my mother-in-law sat down beside me with a mysterious smile. "I know you've been keeping me company lately and haven't had time to manage your personal space. Today is your birthday, and I've definitely arranged everything for you." With that, she took me out the door again and hailed a taxi to the most famous nightclub in town. My mother-in-law pulled me into the private room, then waved her hand toward the outside, signaling that it was okay to come in. Immediately, a stream of people walked in. The lighting in the room was somewhat dim, making it hard for me to see their faces clearly, but there was no doubt that my mother-in-law's taste was impeccable under the light. I watched as my mother-in-law smiled at me. "Enjoy yourself, it's your birthday tonight." With that, the door of the private room closed, and I felt somewhat awkward facing this group of people before me. Just as I was about to speak, someone took the initiative to sit beside me. I looked up and observed him under the light. Well, it's indeed a handsome face. Seeing that I remained silent, the other person picked up the wine and poured me a drink first. "Miss, the madam said we should take good care of you. Rest assured tonight, no one will disturb us." The strong liquor made me feel dizzy, but with what little consciousness I had left, I nodded and laughed. "All right, I'll leave it all to you." I squinted at the row of people standing before me and smiled. "The lights are too dim. Can't see clearly." Someone immediately caught my meaning and stepped forward to brighten the lights. The sudden glare made my vision blur momentarily, and I thought I glimpsed a familiar figure among the row of faces. I shook my head, convinced it was just the alcohol playing tricks on me. The voice of the boy beside me also seemed distant at this moment. "Sister, are you drunk? Sister, can you not handle alcohol?" I nodded in confusion, then turned to look at him. "You're really quite good-looking." Seemingly caught off guard by my words, the young man paused for a moment before bursting into laughter. "Madam came to our shop days ago and spent a long time choosing," he said. As he spoke, he took the wine glass from my hand and leaned even closer to me. An ambiguous atmosphere instantly arose. I curled my lips slightly, about to ask the others to leave, when I turned my head and saw a familiar face. Looking at Su Zian's gloomy face, for a moment I thought I was the one who had gone mad. I shook my head vigorously, trying to convince myself it was all just drunken hallucinations. Yet no matter what, Su Zian's face remained stubbornly vivid in my mind, until Su Zian walked up to me with a cold smirk. "Seems like you've been living quite comfortably with my mother these past few months." I froze for a moment, Before I could even retort, Suzian spoke coldly to the boy sitting beside me, "Get out." The boy's expression darkened as he stood up protectively in front of me. "Who are you? I don't recall seeing you among the selected participants." "I advise you not to cause trouble, or I'll call security," Suzian scoffed, pushed the boy aside, and with an unyielding grip, pulled me into his embrace. "Who am I? I'm her husband." With that, he dragged me out of the private room. I struggled to break free but only ended up being gripped tighter. Chapter 6. I wanted to call for help, only to realize that my mother-in-law, who should have been seated in the VIP section of the main hall, had disappeared at some point. A bad feeling instantly arose in my heart. I lowered my head and bit down hard on Suzian's arm. He let out a muffled groan, clearly in pain from my bite. Yet he still didn't let go, even tightening his grip. I grew anxious, my voice rising involuntarily. "Suzian, what exactly are you trying to do? Let me go. I need to find someone." Suzian dragged me all the way to his car before finally releasing me, but then immediately shoved me into the passenger seat. He got into the car with a cold expression, immediately locked the doors, and started the engine. Seeing my utterly despondent look, Suzian finally spoke. "Come home with me. Dad is here too, so you don't have to worry about Mom. Right now, all you need to do is sit tight and come home with me." I lost my temper and turned my head away, refusing to look at him. The journey was silent. Suzian drove through the night, and I was forcibly taken back to the Su family. Suzian dragged me into the room and threw me onto the bed. I struggled to get up, but Suzian pressed down on me. The familiar scent filled my nostrils, yet it made me feel utterly nauseated. I shoved him away abruptly and stood up, watching Suzian's every move with vigilance. Suzian sat on the bed, staring straight at me without blinking. His intense gaze made me uneasy, so I spoke first. "Suzian, we're already divorced. You have no right to interfere in my life now. You shouldn't have forced me to come back." Suzian burst into laughter. "Divorce? Jiao Jiao, I never signed the divorce papers. How could I possibly agree to this one-sided divorce?" He spoke while taking out a piece of paper from the drawer beside him. It was the divorce agreement I had left behind when I departed, and on it, only my signature stood alone. He stood up, slowly approached me, and then tore that divorce agreement into shreds right before my eyes. I silently watched his movements, but suddenly felt somewhat tired. "Suzian, what's the use? As long as I have the chance, I can always find another lawyer to file for divorce. You can't keep me by your side forever." "I'm serious. I want a divorce." Suzian gazed at me heavily. "Why, didn't you love me very much? Was it because I left with Lin Fu that mid-autumn day? Or was it because you were unhappy when I gave her your clothes? Or perhaps because I hadn't come home for a long time, making you misunderstand?" I froze for a moment, then let out a bitter laugh. Suzian knew it from the very beginning. He knew it would make me angry, make me unhappy. Yet he still did it, no particular reason, simply because you never cared about my thoughts or my situation in the first place. Seeing that I didn't respond, Suzian softened his tone a bit. "If you don't like it, I won't do it anymore. I won't see Lin Fu again either. Let's start over." "Okay." I shook my head and didn't speak again. Right now, talking to Suzian in this state is futile. I couldn't be bothered with him anymore. Suzian stepped forward and pulled me into his embrace, his voice whispering by my ear. "It's okay. Just stay at home for now. You'll see the changes in me. Please don't go looking for other men anymore. Okay, Jiao Jiao, the truth is, I've always liked you. I just never said it before and didn't know how to express it. Lin Fu and I really are just friends. I only wanted to help her." I ignored him and didn't speak, just pushed him away and lay alone on the bed, staring at the moonlight outside the window. "I wonder how Grandma is doing now." There was a rustling sound behind me as Suzian lay down at my back, cautiously wrapping his arms around me from behind. I closed my eyes, pretending to know nothing. Suzian whispered softly, "Jiao Jiao, don't leave me anymore." Chapter 7. On the 5th day locked in the room, I successfully opened the door using the key I had taken from his clothes. Just as I was dragging my suitcase to leave, I ran into Lin Fu. Lin Fu stopped in her tracks, looked me up and down, then scoffed. "I heard you've been away for a while. You're not entirely useless, At least you're quite good at playing hard to get. I frowned, not even bothering to look up. Miss Lin. If you're so eager to become the madam of the Su family, I won't stand in your way. After all, what the mistress wants most is always to take the wife's place, isn't it? You. Lin Fu was so furious she pointed at me for a long time without managing to speak. I curled my lips slightly and continued with a hint of sarcasm. Instead of wasting your time causing trouble for me, you'd better think about how to get Su Zian to sign the divorce papers, otherwise you'll forever be stuck with the title of mistress. Lin Fu was about to speak again when her gaze caught sight of Su Zian, who had already returned home. She immediately went up to him, linking her arm with his, her voice filled with endless grievance. Zian, I just wanted to come see my sister today, but it seems she doesn't really welcome me. I raised my eyes, meeting Su Zian's gaze. What's the matter? Are you going to start scolding me for your little lover? Save your breath. You'd better sign the divorce agreement quickly. At least your little lover won't be called a homewrecker by outsiders anymore. Su Zian lowered his eyes, silently withdrew his arm, and then began to explain. That's not it, Lin Fu. You should leave. Don't come looking for me anymore. Lin Fu widened her eyes. But then with tears welling up, she said plaintively, Why, Zian, didn't you say you would always help me? Is it because sister would misunderstand? Or is it because… Su Zian shook his head firmly, cutting off Lin Fu's words. Go ahead, just as I said, don't come looking for me anymore. With that, he paid no attention to Lin Fu's reaction and stepped forward to take my hand. I instinctively dodged, but Su Zian's face showed a hurt expression. Do you really have to leave? Stay, okay? Look, I've already cut ties with her. Let's start over. Okay. I looked at him coldly. Su Zian, I've already told you, we're over, whether it's Lin Fu or anyone else. Su Zian, have you ever truly kept me in your heart? You've taken me for granted, thinking I'd always be there behind you. But, Su Zian, I have my own temper too. Let's get a divorce. Su Zian hung his head, like an abandoned stray dog. Lin Fu, however, spoke up. Zhao Jie. There's really nothing between me and Zian. If you don't like it, Zian won't meet with me again. Come back. I really can't bear to see Zian so depressed anymore. You don't know. During the time you were away, I stayed with Zian, watching him sink into despair. I raised my hand to stop her. Lin Fu, there's no need to pretend in front of me. You'd be better off spending that effort on men instead. Putting on an act in front of me just makes me sick. Su Zian didn't stop me. Instead, he returned my phone and then watched me leave the Su family home in a daze. The first thing I did after getting my phone back was call my mother-in-law. The phone rang for a long time. And just when I'd given up hope, it was answered. My mother-in-law's voice came through the phone, sounding somewhat weary. Zhao, are you out now? The long unheard voice gave me a sense of familiarity, and I only felt a stinging sensation in my eyes, standing by the roadside with the night wind blowing against my face. I choked up and spoke. Mom, I miss you. Did Su Yang lock you up? Should I come rescue you? There was silence on the other end for a while, and all I heard was her sigh. Zhao, Su Yang won't let you know where I am. Be good and leave. Go anywhere but here. After divorcing Zian, you can live comfortably with the Su family's assets. I immediately retorted, no, if we're leaving, we go together. Before I could finish speaking, my phone was knocked to the ground. As I turned my head, someone covered my mouth and nose, and I instantly lost consciousness. Just before my awareness completely faded, Lin Fu seemed to appear before my eyes. Bitch. Still pretending. Once you're dead, let's see how you keep up the act. Chapter 8. When I woke up again, I was already tied to a chair. I tried to take in my surroundings, but a familiar voice rang in my ears. Awake, I turned my head and saw Lin Fu stepping out of the shadows, looking down at me. I frowned as Lin Fu curled her lips into a smile. Jiang Zhao, because of you, Su Zian refuses to see me now. It seems your tactic of playing hard to get is quite effective. Just as detestable as your mother-in-law. Don't worry, once my mother finds that old bitchy Yoon's whereabouts, she'll join you soon enough. I struggled desperately, but Lin Fu only laughed louder. Stop struggling, it's pointless, you'll die, and Su Zian will forget you soon enough. Then I'll still have a chance to take your place. I sneered. Seems you really enjoy being the other woman, with so many options, yet you stubbornly cling to Suzanne alone. No sooner had I spoken than a heavy slap landed on my face. Lin Fu's expression looked somewhat deranged. What do you know? Suzanne is my best choice. His family is rich and won't care if we have children. What's more, he treats me differently. If it weren't for the abortion that damaged my body and left me unable to have children again, I could have found someone better than Suzanne. As she spoke, her expression returned to its previous faint smile. But it doesn't matter anymore. Since you're about to die anyway, once Hee-yoon follows you to the grave, the Su family will truly be under mine and my mother's control. Go ahead. With that, a man walked towards me with a sinister smile, holding a sharp dagger in his hand. It's okay, it'll be over soon. What a pity, such a pretty face. The dagger pressed against my neck, its icy touch making me struggle instinctively. The blade cut through my skin, and I could feel tiny drops of blood seeping out. I lowered my head and bit the kidnapper's hand with all my strength. The kidnapper cried out in pain, then grabbed my hair and cursed, "Bitch, I'll send you to hell right now." The moment the dagger thrust toward me, the tightly shut door was suddenly forced open. And a hand swiftly grabbed the dagger. I froze, looking up at Suzanne. Suzanne held the dagger firmly, while the surrounding police immediately moved in to subdue the kidnapper. As he let go, blood was already streaming uncontrollably from Suzanne's hand, but he still untied the ropes for me. His voice trembling slightly, "It's okay now, Jiao Jiao." He pulled me into his embrace. Thank goodness you're all right." I froze, staring at him in disbelief. How are you here?" Suzanne lowered his gaze and simply scooped me up in his arms. "I'll explain when we get back." He nodded to the police officer beside him. "Thank you for your trouble." As they were leaving, Lin Fu broke free from restraint and rushed forward to grab Suzanne's sleeve. "Zian, it's not like this. I just love you too much. Help me one more time. Just once more, okay?" Suzanne ignored her and simply carried me away quickly. I told Suzanne many times that I was fine, but he still insisted I be hospitalized. On the first day of my hospital stay, my mother-in-law came. She looked at the injury on my neck, her eyes filled with uncontrollable distress. "Jiao Jiao, it's my fault. If I hadn't taken you away back then, perhaps you wouldn't be facing this danger now." I shook my head and held Grandma's hand. "No, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't truly be living my own life." With tears in her eyes, she nodded. "Don't worry. Lin Fu and Lin Ying have already been arrested. Besides the charge of kidnapping, they're also guilty of countless thefts of confidential documents from major companies." Seeing my stunned expression, she continued to explain. Su Yang had already explained everything to me when he brought me back. Lin Ying and her mother appeared suddenly, but they returned with a huge sum of money. Their intentions were impure, so Su Yang decided to hold his ground and let Zian investigate in secret. It was later discovered that they were involved in some illegal dealings behind the scenes. In fact, Lin Ying's ex-husband's company went bankrupt because the mother and daughter sold commercial secrets. Su Yang deduced that Lin Ying's return this time was likely to find someone to take the fall, or even to continue those illicit transactions. "Zian took your phone, and I never had a chance to contact you. It's my fault." Her tears threatened to fall again as she spoke. I comforted her softly. "No, Mom, if they had told me in advance, we wouldn't have had to run around like this. Don't blame yourself." The door was pushed open, and Suzanne let out a somewhat helpless sigh. "It seems that just a short while after I left, you two didn't hesitate to badmouth me and Dad." Looking at Suzanne's tightly bandaged hand, I instinctively asked, "Are you okay?" After speaking, I suddenly felt a bit strange and immediately turned my head away. However, Suzanne perked up and sat beside me. "You're not angry anymore, then? Are we still getting divorced?" I snorted coldly. "That depends on your performance." My mother-in-law looked at us with a smile, then mysteriously added as if suddenly remembering something, "Jiao Jiao, you're so careless. You still haven't noticed. You're pregnant." I froze, my hand resting on my abdomen. "I am pregnant." Suzanne lowered his gaze and gently covered my hand with his. "Jiao Jiao, you're pregnant." An indescribable joy welled up in my heart as Suzanne pulled me into his embrace. "I won't do this again in the future. Let's be good and just focus on raising our child, okay? I didn't speak, but neither did I push Susie-Ann away. Her mother-in-law smiled, but Susie-Ann turned to her and said, Mom, Dad said he prepared a surprise for you. Do you want to go back and see? He mentioned, wanting to make it up to you. Her mother-in-law's face flushed slightly with embarrassment. Oh. We're such an old married couple, really. I laughed out loud. This is Dad's way of showing his love. I'm telling you, if you pull something like this again, Mom and I won't hesitate. We'll leave immediately. Susie-Ann nodded eagerly. I promise. Sunlight streamed through the window, and as I squinted my eyes, I felt completely relaxed. I looked up and exchanged a knowing smile with my mother-in-law. Next time, I won't give such an opportunity to that father and son pair.